Vittorio Vic Amuso is a notorious figure in organized crime and was a longtime boss of the Lucchese crime family. Known for his ruthlessness and paranoia, Amuso's tenure as the head of the family marked one of the bloodiest eras for the Lucchese family. He operated with a strict no-tolerance policy against perceived threats or disloyalty, ordering multiple murders even of his own associates. Here's an overview of Amuso's life, rise to power, and influence on the mafia in New York. Early life and entry into the mafia. Vittorio Amuso was born on November 4, 1934, in Brooklyn, New York. He was raised in a neighborhood where organized crime had a strong presence, and he became involved with the Lucchese family early on. By the 1950s and 1960s, he was engaging in various criminal activities, including drug trafficking, loan sharking, extortion, and labor racketeering, which helped him rise through the ranks of the Lucchese family. Amuso's strong work ethic, coupled with his dedication to the family's interests, made him a trusted figure among senior Lucchese leaders. Rise to power and partnership with Anthony Casso. In the 1970s and early 1980s, Amuso formed a close partnership with Anthony "Gaspipe" Casso, a feared hitman and future underboss of the Lucchese family. Together, they became one of the most feared duos in the mafia. Their brutality and cunning helped them expand the family's power, particularly through extortion and control over unions in New York City. In 1986, Amuso became boss of the Lucchese crime family, taking over from Anthony Corallo, who had been sentenced to 100 years in prison during the Mafia Commission trial. Amuso's partnership with Casso strengthened his grip on the family, as Casso acted as his enforcer, intimidating rivals and associates alike. The violent era of Amuso's reign. Amuso's time as boss is known as one of the bloodiest in the Lucchese family's history. Paranoid about potential informants and rivals, Amuso and Casso unleashed a wave of murders to eliminate anyone they viewed as a threat, including members of their own family. Some of these orders were based on mere suspicion rather than concrete evidence. Amuso was known to order the murders of associates, soldiers, and even captains, believing that removing any potential threat, no matter how minor, would secure his position. Amuso's paranoia was heightened by the intense law enforcement pressure on the mafia in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Under his rule, the Lucchese family orchestrated numerous murders, including high-profile hits that shocked the criminal underworld. One notorious example is the so-called Windows case, where the Lucchese family, along with other mafia families, rigged bids for New York City window replacement contracts, leading to tens of millions of dollars in profits. When Amuso suspected disloyalty among associates involved, he ordered several murders to cover up the operation. Attempted hits and internal betrayals. Amuso and Casso's ruthlessness backfired, as their violence and paranoia drove many Lucchese members away from the family. Their approach strained relationships with other mafia families, especially when Amuso ordered hits without consulting the Mafia Commission, the governing body of organized crime in the U.S. Amuso's mistrust extended even to some of his closest allies, which led to numerous assassination attempts on suspected informants and rivals. This atmosphere of fear and suspicion led to deep divisions within the Lucchese family. By the early 1990s, law enforcement efforts were closing in on Amuso, making it increasingly difficult for him to avoid capture, arrest, trial, and life in prison. Amuso went on the run in 1991 after learning of impending indictments against him. He was ultimately captured in Scranton, Pennsylvania, in 1991. After his arrest, he was put on trial for a range of charges, including racketeering, extortion, and multiple murders. Despite efforts by his legal team, Amuso was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in 1992. Even from prison, Amuso continued to exert control over the Lucchese family, reportedly issuing orders through loyal intermediaries and maintaining a degree of influence over family activities. His time in prison was marked by ongoing attempts to consolidate power within the family and deal with internal dissent. His trusted lieutenant, Anthony Casso, who had continued to run family operations while Amuso was on the run, was also arrested. Casso eventually turned informant, betraying Amuso and the family, which further destabilized the Lucchese hierarchy. Legacy and impact. Vittorio Amuso's reign left a lasting impact on the Lucchese family and the New York Mafia. His ruthless methods, combined with Casso's betrayals, resulted in a weakened family that struggled with internal divisions and law enforcement scrutiny. The violent and paranoid approach Amuso adopted ultimately alienated many loyal members and created a climate of distrust within the organization, which contributed to the decline of the Lucchese family. Amuso's life is often cited in mafia documentaries and books as a cautionary tale of how extreme violence and paranoia can backfire in organized crime. His leadership marked one of the last periods of absolute power for a mafia boss in the traditional sense, as law enforcement's crackdown on organized crime in the 1990s dismantled much of the mafia's influence. In prison, Amuso remains one of the few bosses still alive from the heyday of the New York mafia families, symbolizing an era of organized crime marked by intense violence and a decline due to internal conflicts and federal prosecutions. His life story continues to fascinate both historians and true crime enthusiasts as a complex portrait of power, paranoia, and violence. Thanks for tuning into Sika True Crime Docs. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating tales. Your support helps us keep bringing these stories to life. See you in the next episode.